Good morning from Vermont, America. It's supposed to be a beautiful day. It's only 7 here now. Damn, you got the full day ahead of you still. Yo, I don't have an ESL logo. Do you think ESL will be really upset if I don't put the ESL logo on? Am I feeling dangerous? I will find it. Give me a sec, guys. Sorry, the FPS will drop for one moment here while I tab out. Why don't I have the ESL logo saved somewhere more convenient? Wardy won't be getting in trouble with the ESL today. Alright, my friends. Hello. Welcome. How are we doing? As we have Creator and ByuN, a best of 3 series from, I believe, the quarterfinals of the ESL Open Cup Korea that happened on Sunday. Today, the 13th, so Sunday the 9th of April. And, yeah, just covering this one to warm up. I mean, I like myself some ByuN. And we'll kind of continue through this event as well. I only looked down up until the round of 8. I basically scrolled down from... I sorted it by name, and because the matches are all in, like, you know, named order in terms of the round numbers, I was able to just scroll down until I saw a match I liked. So I saw the round of 8 matches, ByuN and Creator. I don't know what else is in this pack. It may turn out to be like a whole chunk of TvTs after. Maybe we won't do it then. But in general, we'll start off here, and then we'll just go from here, because it just means I can do it spoiler-free. You know, it could be a bunch of PvPs as well. So we'll just kind of pick and choose our replays moving through the tournament. If there's some cool matches, then there's some cool matches. If there's not, then there is not. But hopefully there is. We'll see. Like I say, I feel like this is a good starting point. ByuN and Creator, pretty fun, pretty back and forth. Yeah, sure. I think we prefer ByuN here a lot of the time right now. He really is playing at just a very high level lately. But Creator has, you know, really stepped it up in the last year or so. And one of the big things I feel like we've had from Creator is just consistency. And that's something we've never really had from Creator before, that consistency in his gameplay. And consistently being at the top. Like, you know, when he hit that GSL finals, everyone was like, oh, good on Creator. You know, he had a good run. He had a good run. He had that one season. And then the rest of that year, he just continued to deliver top 4 at Valencia. You know, he looked like a real competitor at Katowice just a couple months ago. You know, Creator really has consistency kind of figured out as of late. And that's really nice to see for a player that, you know, can get very emotional, can struggle. It's good to see that that's been something he's been able to recover from a little. So, yeah, very cool. As we get going, we do have a couple Marauders and Concussive Shell opening here from ByuN, moving across the map. So, two Marauders making their way across. There's going to be an Adept here. Is going to slam its first Adept Glaive into a Marauder. Now, that's a reinforcing Marauder. So there's Adept shading back. It's like, uh-oh, Marauders here. But the timing isn't right, and that's because 2 Marauders are already ending up on the other side, and that's got to have Creator a little bit worried. Battery will go down. That's going to give you a huge amount of opportunity now with these Marauders to get some damage done. First probe falling. Second, Adept comes back in from the other side. Feels like he can kill this, so ByuN going to prioritize going after this Adept. Remember, he will have an extra Marauder here in a few moments. Just waiting for that to shuffle on into play, as we do have the extra Marauder coming in now. 4 probes killed so far, so pretty decent start from ByuN. Adept and our Stalker just going to come through, and just going to a couple more Marauder shots off the Stalker, taking some pings. Is going to have to be careful. The Adept's going to get rid of one of the Marauders. Can we get the shot off? No, we cannot. The Stalker gets away to the battery. The Marauders die. You know, all said and done. 4 probes, 3 Marauders, but also the mining lost because you pulled the probes away. You can see the income advantage Creator was getting at one point, and how that dipped down quite heavily. So ByuN has stinted the economy of Creator early. His own expansion now up, and he's on into that multiple rack setup, which we know ByuN loves because it allows him to be aggressive. It allows him to be active on the map early. It's exactly the sort of thing that is just perfect for ByuN. It really plays into exactly how he likes to play. So that is really, really good to see. As our factory continues into play, we'll see our Blink coming through our gates as well. So we see where Creator's going to take this in terms of tech. Going to open into those Blink Stalkers for the next few moments. That's going to be the follow-up plan for now. Two more depots coming out. We do see the Marines, Combat Shield, +1, all still coming in from ByuN. Our Warp Prism is chrono boosting on the Robo, and obviously that provides a lot of value as well. So let's go. All those Marines just chilling out over here, man. They're just waiting. Obviously, Stimpack is done, but no combat shield, no +1, no medevac, so not enough to kind of justify going across the map or anything, obviously. And so we just sort of sit back, hold back with the Marines for now. Nothing too crazy, just gonna give it a little bit of a wait. And do have our Adept gonna shade forward here, and as the Adept shades forward, just gonna again have a bit of a peek to see if there's anything in particular that might be going down, but there's really not. Seen a pretty slow going game, I suppose, so far. A single Adept there, going to shade by into the natural, and through the natural, actually up toward the main base. Stalkers jump onto this bunker, and that bunker will drop. So bunker down. Uh-oh. What are we going to do here to see a few more Stalkers coming through? So they're warping the rest of those in. Marines and Marauders just going to stim on forward, chasing this Stalker group away. And actually, it's going to be a pretty decent defense from ByuN. He's still pulling SCVs. I feel like at this stage, they could have turned around. The only problem is, obviously, the further you chase Stalkers, the more they just kite away. Blinks come off cooldown, and then you can really keep these Stalkers out of trouble again. And if you can do that, then generally the Terran player is the one that ends up exposed. He has to stim again here to be able to restabilize. And he even pulls the SCVs one more time, so ByuN really kind of... I don't know, I feel like almost like, do you say it's respecting this? I mean, I guess so. If the SCVs are still here, you're respecting that that's a lot of Stalkers and you might be in some trouble, but I just don't know if you had to chase that much in the first place. I mean, by chasing, you do force Creator away, but then you expose your units. Maybe if he was like building a new bunker or something while he was chasing, that I could maybe get behind. I guess he kind of bought himself some time to get to medevacs. There's a few more SCVs still pulling in. The Marauders are clunking through the last few Stalkers here, and both players take some pretty hefty losses. ByuN comes out with a worker deficit, but that only puts Creator onto 48 versus 43. A 5-worker lead is absolutely normal for a PvT. And from ByuN's point of view, he's got an army supply lead too. So with all of this having happened, we kind of just come out to where the game is meant to be at for, you know, a game, you know, that's 7 minutes in TvP. Just, you know, both players committing to a couple of different things early and getting those couple of different things now through and all set up nicely. So, yeah, very cool to see our Stalkers thinking in, going to go after a few of these SCVs. The SCVs going down. Just going to see a couple of Marauders continue to chase those Stalkers away in the prison. Command center going down onto the natural expansions. That's going to be our third base getting set to go. So just going to have that right at the front there as well. So we'll keep our eyes on that and see what happens with it. As our extended thermal lance comes up, our Colossus is halfway done. And 2 more barracks are producing from ByuN, so getting both of those built in the main as well. As we power through into just even more of this mid-game setup. That's what this is all about right now, the mid-game. And getting set up through it. As we do have our Prism in the corner there, just going to get shoved over to the side. Do you have 2 more barracks still building up? Marauders and Marines, like I said, I mean, just everything coming through to hit the mid-game. And to really kind of power through this mid-game with all the drops. And obviously from Creator, he's going to have the splash damage to the Colossi. And we're going to see how ByuN tries to figure out how to play around that, for example. So just a lot of questions in general to be kind of answered here as our Bioforce moves up. Gets rid of a pylon, going to go after the Cybernetics core. We'll take that out as well. Our Bio now going to turn around, and Adept already taking some shots. Stalker's going to blink in. We do see 1 medevac already going down. A second medevac in trouble will also go down. Good cleanups here from Creator. Gets the shutdown on ByuN's army. And that is absolutely massive. Big win in these early stages we just see. ByuN fully retreating, and you know, at this stage, I'd say Creator's definitely put himself in a good spot, because if you stabilize through this mid game against someone like ByuN, yeah, ByuN can play the late game, but generally ByuN is the king of the mid game, right? That's really where he is at his absolute peak. So if you can force him late game, I would say you're giving yourself a bit of a better chance, a bit of a better shot at kind of getting into a good position. Another assimilator coming up over on that side. Dark Shrine coming up, a couple of cannons are building. The Nexus, charge, +1 attack. Everything, again, that you kind of just need here is created to kind of play the next stage of this game. And I love the Dark Shrine especially because that gives him the chance to be a bit aggressive. That gives him the chance to get forwards on the map, be active, and get some harassment damage done. And that buys you so much time usually to get into everything else. In this case, it's going to be disruptors on the follow-up, for example, too. So I love everything about it. And we get to the stage where yeah, ByuN dropping the Ghost Academy kind of needs those ghosts sooner rather than later. You know, once a couple of disruptors are out, it's very difficult to ever nuke those down without reliably, without having an EMP onto them and removing their shields before you really dive. So these ghosts are becoming essential. It is good to see that ByuN is kind of keeping up then in terms of the tech, the pace of the tech in this game. Is what I want to say. A couple extra gates still coming through. The Archon Disruptor +2 attack all coming out as well. Our Bio Army of ByuN will walk over to the right-hand side. Next is about to finish on the 4th base. Our army, it's probably the only, I don't really want to say issue, but this 4th base is maybe slower than we'd expect it to be. Of course, it has been a pretty active game with the initial Marauders and then the Stalkers. So based off of just clock time alone, sure. Is it late overall? I still feel like usually you see pros get that 4th base very quickly, and maybe just surprised to see it only being saturated now because we had that deflection earlier on as well. So maybe some combination of that, as do you have a missile turret finishing up at the front. Army coming through the center. Creator, a bunch of Stalkers into the middle. A bit of an army around the right-hand side deciding what it would like to do. Both players are kind of getting set up here to potentially run into the other. Getting that kind of lineup of events ready to happen. It's going to be Creator to attack on in. Now, there's a few Vikings here that can help to zone out the Colossi. You've got to be careful with the Vikings because the Vikings will obviously die quickly to Stalkers and Archons as a Disruptor shot flies through. 3 SCVs go down already. 8 Zealots warping in. Still seeing a Disruptor about halfway done, +1 armor coming out. Vikings getting some shots off. Target finding the correct Colossus, the one in the front of Hallucination, obviously. No harm shooting that down when everything else is backed away. Now we're getting some free pickings. We're really missing Zealots from this army to be able to kind of force this army back just to stop it being stimmed into. Terran Army is always at its best in TvP when it's chasing down a Protoss who can't just stand there and fight. And that is almost always when the most losses are seen in a game like this one. So that is going to be pretty expensive here out of Creator, losing quite a bit, losing 1 or 2 of his important disruptors, just losing the one. And dealt with the DTs so well so far this game as well. They've really not been an issue for him. So just pretty solid play all around, I think it's fair to say. Shadow Stride still just getting started. A few DTs are going to make their way into this missile turret. It's a bit of a shame. Okay, we have ByuN coming over. I was going to say, we're moments away from having the planetary portals done, so you could probably defend here if the missile turret survives. I thought the missile turret was going to die, but the ByuN got there soon enough to kind of negate anything from really taking place, so nothing all that exciting at the end of the day is. A couple of command centers still building up. The extra barracks is still coming through. Three beginning from ByuN as well. It's just getting that 3-3 up and running. It's just kind of chasing down. Well, actually, it's actually Creator that's chasing down on the upgrades. He's only 2-1. For some reason, I thought it was +3 armor. I was like, okay, well, he's chasing Creator down a bit and maybe catching up. No, ByuN actually in that upgrade lead. Clearing out a little bit. A couple command centers still on the way in. Starport about to finish on the side of ByuN as well, by the way, so that'll be finishing momentarily. Again, our CC is still building up at the front. 3-3 upgrades continuing through as well. And this Bio 4 setting to just chase that group of Stalkers down. Chasing away to the upper left-hand side. Well, kind of a fun macro game we get into because we are going to start seeing this real late-game TvP. I usually say real late-game TvP is when the Protoss player has blink DTs on the map. We're starting to think about, Sky Toss as well, and that's exactly what's happening. Obviously, once the Sky Toss has like a ton of carriers, I'd even say it's kind of a new phase of the game. Some might call it like ultra late game, for example. You see, ByuN the Fusion Core, his intentions there would be to probably get up Ranged Liberators, because the Ranged Liberators are going to be extremely good at zoning, and zoning Disruptors and High Templar away in these fights is going to be big. Even if you don't stop them from storming or firing, you're likely going to clean them up with those Liberator shots if the Liberators survive, and that's a lot of value you can find. So it's really fantastic, and it really just stops a lot of the positions the Protoss can fight into and engage into efficiently a lot of the time. So our Star gets finished up. It is Storm on the way. Storm is not bad because obviously if this becomes an air army out of ByuN, you kind of need to have Storm. Disruptors are great against the ground force, and while a lot of the time I usually say Storm and Disruptors fill the same role, which they kind of do against a ground army, this isn't going to be about the ground army anymore. There's going to be carriers in play. There's going to be more more happening here than ground versus ground. It's going to be about that air battle. So getting Storm already, love to see it. Creator again going to be very well prepped to see the later stages of this game and to hopefully have a very good time in it. Coming through, and not sure actually what exactly happened there, but it's all cleaned up. Seems like a fairly minimal effect so far as our bio continues forward. An observer going down. Fire around this right side. A couple of zealots are beginning to move forward as well, so just trying to see what they can do. And just seeing the cloaking coming up for the Ghost. So again, just later game upgrades. Finishing as both players poised. We're set up on 6 bases versus soon to be 6 bases. Tons of command centers on the way. We are really just looking at a longer game situation here. I'm just gonna nab that obs and the rest of the bio. Still into the center. Army of ByuN starting to push up. Missile turret is going to come through, and the rest of our Bioforce comes around the right-hand side. Liberator just hanging, chilling, waiting. There's the fleet of starports as well. Okay, well, that's the kind of game we're getting, guys. Well, this really has just been sort of settled down and play it long. Not really super. What do I want to say? It's not really being super active in the mid game, right? I mean, you look at resources lost, and yeah, there's been a lot lost. Creator actually lost a ton of stuff, but that was mostly off of a couple of different fights, some DTs being cleaned out over time and so on. You know, when you really consider the fact that this is 80 minutes in, I struggle to think of really any meaningful fights that we've seen. Good denial on this Ghost goes down immediately. Tectonic Destabilizers is on the way, by the way, for the Tempest, so it's going to be something that's also being brought up here. Get that ground damage from the Tempest if you ever do make them. Really good at breaking siege points and just pushing into locations, for example. A couple of probes going to get pushed down, so some damage being dealt, but at this stage we kind of want to lose some probes anyway to get an even larger army on the map as Creator. Yes, you want to build up a bit more of a bank still, but you can do that with 50, 60 workers. You don't necessarily need 70 anymore, and that extra army supply can provide the extra efficiency to make up for not having as much banked up as well. Cancels one of the CCs. Not that that's a big issue. We've got bases for days for ByuN. He's got CC after CC lined up in other locations. So a couple of Archons and an Immortal kind of honestly giving themselves up. They just don't want to be part of this army. The Archons, interesting. I feel as though maybe they still would have had something of a use, but I guess in this super late game stage, if they're just going to get, EMP spammed, they may as well just already be dead. You may as well already have that supplying something else. So actually, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. Get rid of the Archons. The Immortal doesn't really do much at this stage. Immortal's really good at bulking up the army, trading on the ground. You're not looking to trade ground to ground anymore. You're looking to trade up in the skies. That's what the Storm is going to help with as well, of course, so Yeah, 20 minutes in on Gresvan. Ah, you know what, guys? I said, it's a nice little warm-up match for the day, isn't it? Yeah, 20-minute PVT. No end in sight. I definitely feel like we're going to be warmed up after this one, to say the least, I suppose. GTs get to the corner, doing pretty decently. I'm just going to be seeing our Vikings libs coming around, nabbing on Observer already as well. And Battlecruisers are on the way from ByuN, so he's going to turn this into a BC game. Reminds me a bit of Nightmare versus Gumiho from the Korean Royale. It wasn't what the championship was, it was Korean Royale. That was actually a really sick match, which, to be fair, Gumiho was super far ahead in, but his BCs didn't close the game out, and he did end up losing. BCs aren't always the answer. Army into the center of the map, this Bioforce moving into the middle and ready to set up. A few of those BCs still coming out, the missile turrets all coming in. Stalkers bring their way through. The first missile turret will go down. Some missile turret already going to get dropped. A little bit of biostimming over. The Stalkers going to get chased. We have a couple of Vikings taking a couple of shots. But really still not a lot going on. Yo, Lanchan 2003, thank you so much for the 28-month resub on the Prime. Appreciate it. How you doing? Thanks so much for resubscribing today. Good to see you. Especially in this nice slow TvP. Good to have something to talk about, guys. It's just going very slowly, right? That's the setup we have right now. Very slow going. I mean, you don't really want to attack into your opponents because both players have good defensive setups, so attacking into your opponent is only going to make your life difficult. I mean, Creator's kind of thinking about it, but even then you can see his hesitation. He is not completely convinced that he wants to set up and go here. So the shot fires, Bio just about getting away. A few Vikings are going to come through, and there's going to be a couple of shots. Take down one carrier. Actually, one-shot that first carrier with the EMP already on it. Sorta does find a couple of units with EMP, followed by a feedback. Some back-and-forth spell casting, but again, nothing that's really setting the tone for what's about to happen. No one really kind of taking an initial kind of jump start into a fight, potentially. You know, if you take, say you get like a massive EMP, maybe that says to ByuN, right, now I can engage. See that Bio continue to move across here and just not going too far forward, always staying fairly within reach of everything else that's going on. See how a couple of Liberators sieging up. We are going to go pressing forward here. Going to see our Bioforce trying to stand up strong. Our carriers just taking a chance to move on in, but not really doing too much. We've got a nuke lining up somewhere in the top side of the map. This nuke is going to land for some static defense. I was going to say, let's actually watch the nuke come here as well. Big fight isn't breaking out just yet. 4 probes, yeah, not bad. Obviously, we're still kind of toying with the idea of a major battle down in the south. 8k, 6k, 6k, 7k in all the banks of these players, so a ton of rebuilding money available to both, depending on how this game goes. And I tell you what, ByuN still has a lot of ByuNs. We'll see how they turn out. I'm surprised, I guess, by the fact there's even a few Stalkers left over from Creator. I thought they would have been long gone. You know, get rid of Stalkers because they just don't do anything for their supply at this stage of the game. At least the Bio can actually put out some pretty good DPS. Stalkers feel quite pitiful at this point, so I'd like to see those maybe disappear, but otherwise, well, there's a nuke lining up on the top side. A Planetary Fortress gets a shot or two off on a Zealot. Oh, no, no, no! Turns out if you nuke to the same place 3 times, eventually you actually get a massive amount of probes, 15 going down. Well, honestly, Creator shouldn't be rebuilding those probes. He's just going to build more army supply, which is fine. And just going to replace that with, you know, army. I actually don't think this is necessarily bad for ByuN. I think, honestly, when Creator loses the base, that's when it's a problem, because then you don't have somewhere to mine from. Losing the static defense here is a problem too, because then you can't really set up on that location. The actual workers, I don't mind him losing the actual workers, considering again 7.7k minerals, 6.4k gas currently banked for Creator. He doesn't need 55, 60 probes. You know, the longer the game goes, the less workers you really need, the less bases you're going to have active at any point in time, the less workers you can get by with. So, tell you what, these BCs have been pretty uninteresting as well. You know, usually when you see BCs, there's something a little bit exciting about them, but these BCs have been very lackluster. I guess just because I expect to see BCs teleporting in or teleporting out, causing trouble. They've been, you know, they've been present. You know, they signed the attendance sheet. They didn't pay attention in class though. Stemming forward, a couple of EMPs have already layered. First couple of units here, Vikings will take the chance to get a couple kills. I mean, there's the few Stalkers that are just pinging forward. I mean, I get it. There's some anti-air, there's a bit of mobile anti-air on them, but is that really any better than just an extra carry or so? Not convinced. Is Nuke going to finish off this base? Well, Fred has not really been mining from it because he lost all the workers here, so I guess immediately this isn't going to feel like a major issue, but down the line, that's somewhere he probably does want to retake and re-expand too, so having to do that is going to come at a cost a bit further down the line as well. Don't more SCVs. Making their way over. And you have a buyer just going to go knocking through a set of rocks here. So it's going to go pinging through there. We're just lining up another nuke down on the bottom side. Fire force around the top. Just going to see the couple of planetary fortresses on the way in. So just bringing extra defense into the game for ByuN. At this stage, you know, obviously we know it's going to kind of come down to the fight, right? And it's really hard to really judge kind of what's going to happen in the fight because it's really going to come down to just how each of them engage. You know, as ByuN, you want a chance to get these BCs in and on top, dropping the Yamatos, EMPs hitting everything. As Creator, you would love to get a couple of good storms to start off with. You know, you don't actually really want a big fast fight as Creator. You want to make sure that these Tempests can chip away, the carriers can maybe, you know, get all the interceptors out ahead of the battle, maybe start a trade early and then, you know, turn it into a larger fight after. There's a lot of different approaches, and of course it's getting very tense because Creator's taking this forward base. Well, he absolutely needs that base. You know, he needs this base on the bottom side. Without it, he can't really stay in the game. He can't really contest with a ByuN who's still trading 8,000 resources lost better off than him. So, Creator needs to take this base, which means that you're basically having both armies camping on the same screen, which obviously initiates the fights, especially when the Tempests are going to go pinging away and hopefully at some point breaking through somewhere. I mean, you can see this Ghost. Such a very cute position, right? And I love the multiple nukes, because multiple nukes actually give you a good chance of Creator just losing track, and he's definitely not found this one over here. 9 probes going down here, a few batteries will go down here, that will be about it. Not even a few, just a single one, and the rest caught in the explosion after. Let's try and nuke this position again. We actually finished off this base as Creator backed up against the nukes, and, well, there's another few probes going down. Creator's now on 20 workers. I mean, there is a point where you do need some amount of workers still, especially if you do go through all your bank. You want to make sure you're still re-establishing it. And right now, I would say Creator's kind of at the point where he doesn't actually have the workers necessary to mine the bases that he owns. That's generally where the problem comes from, as ByuN bullies his way forward with this army. EMP's coming in, even against the batteries. Not an issue so far. We drop a couple of Yamatos off as well, so getting those straight into play. Now the carriers now begin to fight back, though, and this is where we're going to be able to chase an activated Void Ray, get some extra damage onto those BCs as we chase them down and we go hunting Can the Tempest get a few more of those shots? Tell you what, the Vikings are starting to die pretty quickly here as well. A couple more missile turrets still firing through. The entire carrier force going to get on top of this. Libs are dying as well. The counter-offensive here from Creator, the big push back against what ByuN was doing, is going to find quite a bit of map control, but does he go any further than this? There's tons of missile turrets. It's going to be very difficult to move forward into any of these positions. It's not really just to kind of pull the trigger and go moment. This is a slow and steady moment, and I think that is likely going to be the problem, as our carriers and that intercept is going to launch onto the planetary, the orbitals, and just looking for some cleanups in general as a couple more Viking shots go out, Tempests and everything else being caught up there. Planetary on the bottom side will go down. And again, a few more BCs, a couple more Vikings, the Ghost, all of that still coming through for the moment as well. Now BCs will just knock down those Stalkers. The Stalkers will die, a couple of BCs still coming up here. Our Vikings are still producing. ByuN remaxed fully, Creator. Not that he has issues with money, but he hasn't fully spent it all yet, so we're still eyeing up that. A cash stack, man, 3.2k, 4.6k. He really does have a lot to spend still, as you can see our couple of BCs teleport in. They're going to get rid of the Disruptor. It's going to be goodbye to the battle cruisers, though. We do have a few in the bottom left. Going to be a little bit chaotic, and again, just stop mining bases, stop Creator from replenishing what he is currently losing out on. Creator's not going to respond to these BCs. He's just going to let them go and kill this base. Well, he's going to get a base in return, but ByuN has more bases to start off with. So for every base for base trade, it's going to benefit ByuN that much more than Creator, because ByuN has got these external bases. He's got extra bases over Creator. Beginning this, he is much more well set to actually make that trade than Creator is. So Creator's got to be careful what he decides to do, how hard he decides to commit. The Disruptor shot finds a couple of Ghosts. Oh, always nice to get rid of Ghosts. EMPs are going to be absolute kings of this matchup, so getting rid of a few more of those ahead of the big fights. Can't complain about that, can only smile when you hear those ghostly death screams if you're a Protoss player. These BCs, though, are kind of becoming more and more of an issue. Like, they are just not being dealt with at all. Like, really at all. Yeah, that's a little bit... That's not good, right? As the BCs come peeling away. Gonna go running. Nexus will drop down. Our Tempest, our carriers, all moving down to the south. We're gonna start working our way through Command Center already, so that first CC has to lift off. And these few BCs will turn back around. Carriers and Tempest knocking down the base, and we do clean up in the bottom left. Bam, bam, a couple more BC shots. The Tempest taking some heavy hits. Actually gonna go probably down as well. Is Creator winning any of these fights? You know, we always seem just a lot of drawn-out fights at this point, a lot of trading, but I just don't feel like Creator's coming out on top in any of them. Resources lost-wise, he is 46k to 45k. He's made up that 8k difference. The problem is that ByuN's already mined more. ByuN was just much better on the map and just being a lot more kind of active. Army back around the right side, just seeing the auto command setting up to the top corner. Like I said, I think if Creator can keep trading like this, brilliant, but the problem is he's not going to be able to rebuild anymore. So the next fight is suddenly much more than just sort of doing, you know, taking another round of trades. The next fight is almost do or die, and to be fair, ByuN's bank isn't going to last forever either. It's not going to rebuild this entire army in itself, but it will rebuild a good amount of reinforcements still, which really means that Creator has to do a lot of work with this upcoming fight. I'm not really 100% sure he can. Let's see. I mean, he will deny this base down on the bottom straight away. Of course, ByuN got the top side base up at the same time, so he's not really worried about bases or base count. Carries and Tempest move down the bottom, and just seeing the Stalkers blinking back, not wanting to get overcommitted or get caught in, still wants to, still prioritizing some of these Stalkers in the army. Has done throughout, never really fully cleaned out the Stalker count. I honestly thought at some stage he would, but like I say, it just has not been the case at all, so I guess never mind on that one as our Stalkers come through. Seen a couple of missile turrets, building getting knocked down. Again, this is where Korea can find a lot of value. Uh-oh, here we go. We're going to pull the trigger. Here we are. The BC's teleported. The Armados drop, and it's explosions all over. There's biostimming forwards. Some additional EMPs to help, as we do have the BCs putting in work. An anti-armor missile goes down amongst all of this, and the Vikings are there as well. It is absolutely one-sided as ByuN just decimates the army of Creator. It is not even close. 178 to 28 supply post-fight. Obviously, Creator didn't stop building up anything or rebuilding at all, but yeah, I mean, he would have rebuilt like 30 supply or so. It was not even close. The BCs just picking their moments. The Armados all went off in an instant as well. And yeah, ByuN just coming in with everything else, as that's going to be. GG's. Can you Q-cast Armado? Action, as we are in the bottom right-hand side of the map. It's Dragon Skills for map 2. Nice short map in comparison to Gresvan. This should be a much more comfortable one, as we have in the bottom right. Our Blue Protoss player, Creator. In the top left-hand side from the Shopify Rebellion, our Red Terran player is ByuN. Barracks goes down, gateway gets set up. Binary coming up as well. Just seeing the SCV chasing the probe around for a few moments here. Oh, time to reset a little bit. Obviously a long game. You know, for being a long game, don't get me wrong, the final fight was cool and everything, but there was a lot of inactivity in that game as well, right? There was a lot of just waiting for stuff to happen. It really was just a pretty just sit back, relax, and kind of wait sort of game. Gateway, barracks on the way up as we get started here. Creator will get the cybernetics core already on the way out as well, so getting that cyber core starting. That one Marine is going to go after the probe for a little bit, so the probe doesn't get chased away. And just, command center, our factory, all of this continuing up as well. Still seeing the cyber core coming through. Next on the way out. And the escalator about to finish on the side of Creator as well, so still just bringing this, a lot of this up and into play right now. Marine comes over, probe is going to take a couple of nibbles, it's going to take a couple more again, so it's actually going to be a little bit stuck as it heads into the natural. This probe should eventually die. So wants to go and try and reconfirm what's going on. We'll see the CC in the factory building, so actually a pretty okay vision there, right? That should provide enough vision to see everything, as you can see, so yeah, you do get to see everything. Creator full information with that probe then, so it gives up its life, but it gets to know what is going on, and that's obviously very important. All the other Protoss lives in this game, because now Creator can prep accordingly to make sure he sets it properly for, well, whatever is next for him. He has opened with this robo facility. This is something that we see more often than ever before, I would say, in terms of PvT openings. In the past, robo opening was really quite a rarity. While it's not the most common and very few players are doing it, the players that are doing it still do it fairly frequently. Hero is one of them. Creator's definitely, been one to now mix it in here and there as well. Hasn't really transitioned so much over to European PvT. It really seems like it's something that the Koreans are sticking by. The Europeans are still very much so. Blink, Stargate, why would you do anything else, Cyclone's about halfway done. A couple more Marines still popping out. You have the two Adepts going to make their way up this ramp and just going to dance with the Hellion. Hellion taking a lot of shots. Hellion will go down. Marines coming in, just going to drop onto the high ground. Obviously, you see the few Adepts and the Stalkers moving around the other side. We're going to have these Marines straight into the natural. Going to get rid of one probe. Going to look for a second. You see the Adept. Sorry, the Zealot warping in. Cyclone actually locks onto that. You can see the low HP Stalker is what the Marines initially wanted. I thought he was going to drop on top of it. Instead, he gets it with the Cyclone. The Marines just go into the main base without mobility. These Marines in the main can obviously cause some chaos. It takes a while to get here to defend it, so yeah, it's a lot of lost mining time for Creator. There's ByuN showing up, and it's going to target down a couple of probes at the end here. You can't pull probes back into 4 or 5 Marines, because they can just target fire, and they can just get a couple of kills during that time. So, yeah, that part was not exactly super pretty or anything, but also not too deadly or anything. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I just completely misclicked. Zergiel, I'm so sorry. I just accidentally banned you. I just misclicked. I was trying to get onto my other screen to click the snooze button on the ads, just to set the cooldown off, and I just accidentally pressed the button. It was over the ban button, apparently. Oh, yeah. I turned it into slowly over here. Somebody talked in chat, ban! Get him out of here. How dare they? Breaking up the silence. Yeah. Alright, sorry, guys. What happens when you have bad mouse accuracy, I guess. No wonder my Terran Micro sucks so much. You have the Raven that's into the natural expansion. Tanks will siege up, Marines will jump onto the Nexus, and we will begin to push through. And that Nexus is going to go down. Storm on the way up, by the way, +1 attack, Warp Prism also being brought into play, so all of this coming in as our Marines and a couple of tanks will continue back up to the northern side of the map. Storm still coming through. I'm just going to have the reactor there getting cancelled, and see how he does on the factory then. Obviously, we're a long way off any bio upgrades. Mostly just with the tanks here, and obviously we just pull on back. Couple probes, 2, 3 probes going down already. Going to turn around for number 4. Doesn't quite get number 4 though. Again, stem combat +1, all producing. Once that's finished, ByuN's going to have a hell of a timing. You know, he's had a pretty good start to this game. You look at what's been lost. He killed 9 probes, he denied a lot of mine time. He's got tanks to power up the bio push as well. And the Storm from Creator is, you know, potentially very good, but as I always say with Storm, it's very hit or miss. If it doesn't land in the center of bio and really start chewing through it and picking a bunch off, you are going to be in a ton of trouble, because you are going to get absolutely overwhelmed after. Well, here we go. As ByuN comes across. We will have a couple of tanks. Position ready to do some sieging as a storm goes down. Tank fire reasonable. We will move forward a little bit further. This pylon is going to get picked off. Storm will cast again. This just feels as though ByuN's having a great time. You got rid of the third base already. You've got, you know, dropping the natural, dealing some damage too. These tanks are encroaching into a more and more abusable position, right? It is just getting worse and worse for you here if your name is Creator. Tanks firing. Bio gonna stand. Our stim will activate. Storm comes in, just gonna have our bio lifting off, moving in toward the natural, but decides not to. Okay, we do clean up the tanks, then we clean up this position. That's a start for Creator, and honestly, a better start than what I thought he was gonna get, considering where things were heading, so job well done. Not bad, not bad. I mean, at least he's alive, right? Because he could have very easily just completely died here, basically. So, survived that at the very least. We do have our Sense Tower coming up into the center. Counterattack from Creator, and ByuN's going to pull back into his natural. He's obviously got the drop across the map as well, so enter something of a base trade where Creator doesn't have that much. ByuN knows as well how much of a lead he has. Instantly pulls the SCVs in toward this fight. Loses 16. Prism getting caught by the Matrix means the High Templar can't get out. ByuN would love to capitalize on this time where Storms are not available. Gets rid of an Archon, a couple of the front units as well. That Storm actually kills a Zealot, nothing else, so... Meanwhile, the probes and the Nexus on the natural have died, so this attack of ByuN on the other side has been extremely successful while Creator can't break into the natural of ByuN. It doesn't have to be pretty for ByuN. He knows he's got the advantage here. He knows he's got the lead, and he is doing exactly that as our Bio continues to push in. Stalkers continue to drop. The Immortal will go down. It's going to be GG from Creator. ByuN is going to take the 2-0. That second game, running by a little bit more smoothly and quickly than game number 1 did. That was